It's kind of like yeah, they found it. I've been here. They are. Okay. Project that we're working what about
All right, so before the discussion starts, I just have a very informal proposition for you all who will listen to the discussion. Let's play a little game. So I will distribute you little post-its and some pencils if you need to. And during the discussion, when you will listen what the participants will discuss about, any thoughts you will have, any ideas, sentences, words, phrases, you note it on the post-it and just give me the post-it and I will put it on this white frame. So this way will help us to have a small map of minds that you will have during the discussion you will listen to. So it's not necessary, so just let me know. Right? Then you just raise your hand and all right. So the stage is yours.
So I guess we'll begin. So I think it's best if you introduce yourself.
me?
Yeah, everyone. We'll trust you.
You'll trust me. Say my real name?
Yeah, no.
My Lithuanian passport is different.
Yeah.
I have two names actually. There's no. My name's Andrew Nichtys, but on my Lithuanian there's no W in Lithuanian, so it's Andrev. There's no. It's a unique name. I've never Andre. That makes sense, but Andrev. I don't know. Andrev Rubler or Andrev Rubler. So that's yeah. So I'm an American, kind of Lithuanian. My father was born here, but my mother was from Seattle. She's half Ukrainian, half Italian. But I came here many years ago to visit relatives and ended up getting a Fulbright and some other grants, and I've stayed for about 15 years here in Lithuania. And I'll talk about my photography.
Yeah, yeah. So, at least a few sentences. Why are you interested in this topic of trust?
Well, Jurga wrote to me recently and invited me and told me a little bit about it. And I think as a photographer and the kind of work I do, I deal with people and taking portraits of people, kind of sensitive topics, or you might say kind of in some people who live at the edges of society a little bit. And it's like every day, every moment, there's kind of, when I'm photographing, there's always this trust issue. Because you're asking I was going to talk about it later, but in photography, you're always kind of violating somebody else's space when you're taking the portrait. You can't just sort of like passively take somebody. I mean, you could do street photography, but I like to have somebody in front of me and have a kind of, sometimes you can see in the photography that people look suspicious or they don't trust me, but that's also interesting for me. So it's a complicated thing, and I think some people today would even say it's not sort of correct or politically correct or academically correct to photograph other people. That's another kind of discussions to have too. But, in my work, it's a big issue every time I photograph.
We'll talk.
Next,
Yeah.
next, my name is Stina Palmfors, and together with Patrik from something that we call in Swedish it's the Ministry of Trust, but it's a grassroots NGO, and that we started 10 years ago out of the frustration that so much in society has to do with results and scaling up and forgetting what it is to be a human being. And first of all, we really want to thank you for inviting us and also having this subject, because now we're going to have 3 days together. Some of you will be joining 3 days to talk about the subject that has to do with something that is an inner human aspect that could be very sensitive and very powerful. Is maybe something of the most provocative you can do in society nowadays. So, yeah.
So it means extreme trust in
I couldn't say that in general, but I would say that we tend nowadays in society, at least in Sweden, we focus so much on results and effectivity and control, so that it actually affects human welfare. Because what's the reason to go to your work as a doctor or a teacher if you don't have the time to be human and meet your students? You just have to view them as somebody who's supposed to level up to some kind of result. And we also believe that we really need to spend time on those human aspects, because it's going to take a long time to change systems, but the systems aren't changed by humans. And we believe that the way we know is to spend time to get to know whatever trust is for me and what it is for you, and how we together could take a step further. If that makes sense. I don't know, I'm so into this trust bubble, so you have to excuse me. But yeah.
Yeah, so we have two different perspectives, very different. So what's the third one?
My name is Indra Koshena. I'm representing an applied association of anthropology, and we call ourselves anthropos, human. So you have actually mentioned the human perspective, and so as anthropologists, we actually study how humans understand and see the world, and how do they act in it in their particular ways. So the trust perspective for anthropologists is also quite important because even when entering the research as anthropologists, you would have to have trust from the persons or the society or the community that you are researching. So, so this mutual trust is also very important, let's say, in the social science and in daily practice.
I'm new professor in research philosophy. This area of my interest is analysis of symbolical forms from critical theory point of view. And I'm interested in the problem of trust from my practical experiences because I participated in many protest actions, and it's interesting for me how the protest group is built on the ground of trust in order to resist control. And even if you violate a law, for example, I participated one time, quite long time, in barricades in Kiev, and for me it was always interesting how that all my resistance together with my friends is based only on the trust, because in other case, if I will be arrested, that's for a long time, and when I'm going with them into some actions, semi-military, then it was that it means that if somebody will take you from the opposite side, that they could probably kill you, because nobody take that the other side friendly. And that this position, that the trust could be on the opposite side of the law, and even on the opposite side of surveillance, control, and everything. I found that how could you, it is even on the other side, that philosophers always emphasize doubt as a, you need to doubt in order to speak truth. If you will doubt on the barricades with your friends, you will be immediately lost your possibilities. So I found that there is some situation where you couldn't doubt other philosophy, and it is not a state, and it's not a law. It's trust. It is a trust.
So probably, I don't know, do you have any questions to begin with? Or should we start? Someone? So I guess right now I'm thinking this question, my idea is that for all of you to reflect on this. I think that Western civilization was built on the idea that individuals, as Ginto has mentioned, René Descartes, we need to start from this universal doubt everything. So since we are very small, we are taught to disrespect all authority and think for ourselves, which means to doubt everything. So in this intellectual field, we are supposed to show no trust, right? And even in economic sphere, that also Ginto is interested in that, the mode of production and consumption is capitalism, and it's based on competition, and in competition there's also no trust. So yeah. If you trust, you're stupid. It's a launch. So is there any place in modern complex societies for trust?
If you mentioned my name, I just could start because I already thought about the relationship between the freedom, negative freedom, the most radical freedom, which is based on nihilism, completely nihilism, not about some positives, some positive ideological sense, you are free to build our society, happiness and so on. No, I'm talking about negative sense of freedom, that you are free from everything, and how it's related with the trust. And my first answer is absurd. I trust somebody because it's absurd. No reason at all. Actually, later could explain because somebody recommended, because we spend some time, because empathy, because maybe love, because my recognition. But the first, your solution is that you are here on this protest action, with a sometimes criminal protest action. You are here because you are completely free, and because you are free, you do your protest and you support somebody, because if you will start to think like Francis Bacon's about the idols of marketplace, the idols of the cave and so on, blah, 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 and this ideology and everything, you immediately will stop from your trust. You trust because you fly. You just fly. Because this is no reason. Because it's impossible to explain, because it is expression of your freedom. But later, when you are stopping on the barricade, you start to think about skills of your friends. The first step is absurd. The second step is very rational. How your neighbor could support you in this critical situation, and who from them could be together with you, and could you trust him or not to trust. For example, one time I was in one expedition, and my Russian in a way is not fluent, and they asked me, okay, you are going in one very dangerous expedition, but please not smile, because these people are on the opposite side. Never smile, never joke, be very serious. And the second, never speak, because they will recognize you immediately. And I promised them, but I always joke few days per, 24 hours per day. And they trust me. Please show, could you stay serious 10 minutes? They check me and say, okay, we will trust you. Let's go together. If I did one mistake, all our action will be not just failed, but it was very, very dangerous. So they trust me that I could be serious for 5 hours, for example. That was, for me, it's absolutely impossible, But okay, this is like game, but not for 2 hours like basketball, but you need to play your game 10 hours. Or 5 hours.
So it's interesting that once again our civilization seems to be very rationalistic, but in the end everything is based on belief.
Like
trust.
Albert Camus wrote
Yeah.
same, completely the same. Okay, you could be very rational, very scientific, and you could doubt everything, but in this one moment, when you do your existential choice, this is, how could you explain your choice in the most radical way? This is absurd. No explanation. No rationality.
When I hear no rationality, I'm very prejudiced, and when I hear no rationality, I think about artists. So sorry.
No rationality.
Yeah, sorry.
It's just like super rational.
Yeah, I see, but it's prejudice.
I vote. I doubt everything too, but I'm still on this line where I think you can doubt everything and have this kind of postmodern perspective on everything, but you still have to make a choice and vote in every election. Everybody should vote. I'm an American too. I vote here and I vote in the US. It's very important that people vote. I mean, I know it's always difficult, but you have to make a choice. So let's be, okay, I hauled this huge photograph. It's 1 meter by 80 centimeters from my house on Konodakvia all the way here. So we have to get up and look at it, and I'll talk about my work. Can we do that?
Yeah.
Okay, let's just do that, and then I'll be done with my thing.
Yeah.
Have a light, Okay, so I brought this photograph of this bride at her wedding. And this project, I did this book for many years, starting in the late 90s to the mid 2000s, about the Roma people in Lithuania. So let's just start, because I find that a lot of people don't know anything about the Roma people. Where are the Roma from?
India.
Mom, you're not allowed to answer my mother. Did everybody know that exactly? No, people didn't know that. So they came to Europe about 1,000 years ago. And the kind of very interesting aspect about them, they're the largest minority in Europe, the largest minority group, and they are truly stateless. They have no country. They don't see India as their homeland. So they sort of have to, this is for your trust seminar, they sort of have to trust all the time the countries that they live in, the local communities that they live in, because they're not like, okay, you could say like we can talk about many Jewish people from Lithuania, but the Jews have Israel, say. Or, Lithuanians who lived in America, they still could say, even in Soviet times, Lithuania was my country. Roma people have no true homeland, nothing at all. So that makes it they're always in this tricky kind of position in the societies that they live in. And I came here as an American, and I didn't know anything about Lithuania. My father's Lithuanian, but he didn't teach us anything about Lithuania. We didn't belong to any Lithuanian groups in Seattle, where I'm from. So I came here, and I just wandered around, and I was in Šnipiškės, and I found this Roma family. I didn't know they were Romani. I just thought they had cool clothes and dark hair, and I started photographing them. And then I showed my friends here, and they said, "Oh my God, those are gypsies, you could have been killed, blah, blah, blah." But they said, if you want to learn something, go to the Taboris. And this was like a very long time ago. There wasn't a community center there or anything. And I went by myself, because I like to photograph by myself, and I got in lots of trouble. But then people started to, I'm very stubborn. When I want to photograph something, I can't stop. So I just kept going back, and people got annoyed with me. But then they started to say, "Hey, come on, So anyways, this young lady, she's 15, and in the Roma community, it's also very interesting. They don't really have, she got married, but not like officially married and registered. So she's from Ešeškės, which is this small town. But her husband was from here, but the wedding was in Ešeškės, and she invited me to her wedding in Ešeškės. This is a long time ago. This is like in 2000. And like I was saying before, when you're photographing, you're always in somebody else's space. And the only thing I can say about it is, the only way I work is, I feel the trust comes from, I'm really interested in those people that I'm photographing. And I think they understand that. Like, I couldn't even speak Lithuanian at this time at all, or Russian, or Romani, or anything. So, and the trust thing is also interesting. I think we have some academic people here. I went to this wedding, and this professor was with me, who's a Roma expert, kind of. And during the wedding, I was going around, I was drinking with everybody, having a good time, dancing and stuff. And she would say to me, "Oh, Andrew, you're not supposed to..." Like, the women invited me to their table. At the weddings, it's the women on one side, the men on the other side. And she's like, no, you can't do that. I was like, why not, And it's also a learning experience when you're with people. And the trust comes from making mistakes. And, a lot of people say you shouldn't photograph people that aren't like you. I think in the academic world, it's kind of become like that a little bit in some places, where if you're not Romani, you shouldn't be photographing Roma people. And I don't think that's true. I think you really learn when you cross a border, or you cross a boundary. And it's a violation a little bit. It can be, these people a lot of people I photograph, they're not sure even where the photograph ends up. That's a whole other issue. But, I lost my train of thought, but that trust, I think, is really important in all this kind of stuff. And for me in Lithuania, this is kind of one of the big issues. I came here, I didn't know much about Lithuania, but Czesław Miłosz, I just brought a bunch of his books, and that's how I learned about Lithuania. and you guys who aren't from here, you might not know, Vilnius was, and Lithuania was one of the most diverse countries in Europe before the Second World War. The city was half Jewish. There were Roma people, Muslim people, I mean, not lots, but there were, and Russian, Belarusian, Polish, Lithuanian, it was like this huge mix of people and languages. And we lost a lot of that during the Holocaust. And so for me, the Holocaust is a very interesting, because the whole kind of Europe and this whole thing, everything fell apart and nobody trusted their neighbors. And my thing, when I write about this project now, because I live in this village, I have a house in this village, my neighbors are Romani, actually, my neighbors. And for me, the Holocaust, the only way I can think about it is personally, as neighbors didn't trust their neighbors, and in Lithuanians, the truth of the matter is, like I have a house in Žigai, Lithuanians were actually the people who killed their Jewish neighbors. It wasn't Nazis from Germany, it was Lithuanians who were very active in murdering their neighbors. And how did that happen? How did it end up where we were in a situation where neighbors actually, they killed the people they knew, they took their houses, they took their land, and it was this whole kind of process. So, and I've gotten a lot of trouble in Lithuania, so my friends know this. I wrote, one of my exhibitions here at the National Library was canceled because I wrote about this in a very personal way, and they didn't like it, and they canceled my exhibition. So there's a lawsuit. But, so that's my story about the Roma. Anybody have any questions? I know we only have like a few minutes. So I'm working on a new book of this work because after I finished this book about 10 years ago, I just couldn't stop photographing. So I'll be making a new book in about a year and a half with lots of writings about my experiences photographing.
I have a question.
When you say, that the Roman people trusted you and you have your photographs and you spend time with them, and there's always a question for me, when artists approach a certain social community or minority group, you always grab their experience and you collect their experience, and then you produce some kind of piece of art that you are presenting as an artist. But do you think you also give back something for the community that you are?
Well, this is one of the most difficult questions, because this project was actually a side project. I didn't see it. I thought it was like a kind of social project, and I was working with groups where I thought I could help the Roma community. But I kind of realized myself that the only way I can really photograph and be true to myself in some way is to take the pictures that I like, I can't really, and I'm very skeptical that art can actually help people, I'm not so sure that can happen. I'm not sure, I'm not sure if I could really change somebody's mind. People come to my exhibitions and they say that they think about things differently, but I'm not sure, how much I could change something. The very small thing that I think I did that was good was when I photographed people, I gave them gifts. Like, I gave them the photographs I took of them. And in the Roma community, it's very interesting because their language isn't written down. Their family histories are oral histories or through photography. So when I gave them a photograph, it was very important for them. And they have them on their, in their houses and stuff. And when I did my book at the National Art Museum, I just was in an exhibition, and people, when I gave them my book, they would go through my book and find their picture or a picture of their relative. They would tear it out, give me the book back, and take the photograph and hang it on their wall. They put it in frames and stuff. So that was a very small thing. Yes?
Yeah, my question is, did you show your photography before you did this one picture? Did you show your pictures for Romas in the process of your meetings?
A little bit, but not a lot. I'm totally honest here. It's everybody sees photographs differently, and the way I would make a book about this subject, I'm not sure there's some neutral way that you can, or something that would satisfy the people you photograph, even if it's like a celebrity.
You know that Romans people have originally, in general, very special, specific aesthetic taste, you
Yes,
know.
yes.
We could call this little bit kitschy, little bit, you know, luxury, you know. And you did, on my opinion, very acceptable for them, at least this one picture. On my point, this is beautiful and very nice, and it expressed gypsy community in the best way. But they didn't know before it.
Yeah.
And they could watch many of other pictures where they presented not in the best way, dirty, you know, criminal and blah blah blah.
Yes, yes,
and
yes.
why they could trust you?
Yeah, I mean, the classic Roma does is Joseph Kadelka, a Czech photographer, and his photography is kind of the classic, you know, it's black and white with some naked kids and dog running around in the background. But he was a theater, kind of made everything kind of theatrical. Yes, I mean, all I'm saying, for me, it's a conversation, and you know, I work with this is like 20-year project, and people don't like my photographs, you know. I had an exhibition in Jagari in the palace. Well, I think a lot of people, like, there's some, they see their photographs and there's like a plastic bag or something, and they're like, Andrew, what, you can't, you know, like, we have to. And when I gave people gifts, you have to, I didn't bring those photographs. Sometimes they would cut the picture of themselves out and put a like flower background around the photographs, you know. So I'm not afraid to have that conversation. You know, I had an exhibition in Jagari in the palace where there are like 20 Roma families that live there, and the 3 like gypsy kings, called them, came to the exhibition. And Ignace, the one guy, he doesn't like my photography. I showed him my book, but a couple of weeks before the exhibition, I said, Ignace, you have to come on. And I said, let's have a conversation. And at the exhibition, we talked about what he didn't like. And he said, you know, you're showing this kind of, he thought this kind of village life, this trashy tablets, you know, as he would call it. For me, it's beautiful. But for him, it was like, no, people live differently, you know. So I'm not afraid to have that conversation. But I think that's, maybe that's the trust thing, or that's how you change something, you know. You explain to people why, you know, I explain why I did it this way, and they tell me why they would do it a different way. That's all you can do, you know. You can't make something where everybody's happy. That's not art, or that's not photography. You're going to upset some people, you know. So.
I think it would be nice that, you know, like we will follow the thought, and because, I mean, we have more art pieces and other speakers as well who could, you know, tell about their trust point, you know, about their experience about the trust point. Andrew made it like really great.
Okay.
So maybe, I don't know, who else?
Maybe we could return.
Yeah, let's return to the discussion. So maybe it's nice if we hear about the Scandinavian experience. I think, like Andrew, in some sort of way, explain, you know, his view on trust through Roma life, you know, and how she works and what happens to them. And a little bit on Lithuania in a specific way. Maybe Stina, you can tell about to forget how you work, how trust lives in Scandinavia and Sweden.
Yeah. Thank you. I would like to start by commenting the result, or whatever you would say, from what we did, the experience, and we got
Oh,
to
you mean those
yeah.
we call it meters of trust.
The meters of trust, if it's okay, because it's easy to spot that most of us chose others as the most important aspect of trust during this experience. And when we talk intellectually with people, generally in Sweden, with people working within society or politicians or kindergarten teachers, if they would say what is the hardest, the most difficult thing to trust, it's others. And it would have been very interesting if we would have had just checked in with what aspect of trust would you say is the most difficult, and then after the experience to see, because I'm almost convinced that, or maybe it's different here in Lithuania, but intellectually people would say that trusting others is the most difficult thing. And they usually also say that it's the most important thing when it comes to positive change and wanting to create positive change. And what we do, as I said, it started 10 years ago, and it's an NGO, and the people who run Tillitsverket, it's doctors, it's artists, it's carpenters, it's bureaucrats working within state agencies, or social workers, or teachers, with the conviction that we really need to spend time playing, creating, and being aware of the human inner aspect. And we've been developing a lot. We started like 10 years ago just inviting grown-ups and kids to play in the forest and just sort of like experimenting what happens when people come together. And I think in 10 years, a lot of things have happened. It's so hard to get grown-ups to play nowadays because they need to document everything that their kids do and put it on Instagram instead of taking part. And there's the most popular app. It's called Spontando. It's going to help you to become more spontaneous when you walk around in the city. And I think that says a lot about our time now. So we started by playing and inviting grown-ups and kids to play together, and the more people we met, the more it was about trust and really putting trust in center. And our way, what we have found, this is very general, but there are two ways of coming to trust. One way is that something happens in life, that you really don't have a choice. You become sick, you need to relate to social services, whatever. You don't have an option, you just need to trust. And the other way is sort of like a conscious decision that I have a choice here. I could distrust and go down that road, but I can also choose, make an active choice to trust this person or this situation or so on. And this is quite interesting because in Sweden, I think it could be interesting to mention, because since I think it's 3 years ago, there's actually, what's the English word for it? There's a trust delegation, so governmental delegation for trust, working to make more state agents trust-based, so that it should be run more from trust.
How does it work then? Like, they don't get paid? I mean, how does it work? Like, what is that?
Yeah, that's what everyone's trying to figure out, because now the state has sort of made a statement. It's like, okay, we've sort of run down the new public management system based on, it's actually like the industrial system of controlling, producing and controlling, and we transferred. Sweden was the most efficient country in transferring to new public management, putting all the control system of actually a production system. And that turned like this, the healthcare industry, the school area, and the police system, the people working within those are the ones who have the most mental, they're away from work the most, and it's quite the crisis how few people want to become teachers and police and work within healthcare. And that's because they spend so much time documenting and controlling, and so little time on what you actually want to do in your life. Being a teacher, teaching, or meeting patients as humans, and not as clients or products. So that really made the government, okay, we need to do something here. And this was about 6 years ago. And then now, I mean, systems, everything is so slow, but now there is a situation where they have this trust policy or whatever, and now everyone sitting in Sweden, Swedish agencies, is like, okay, how? Because it's, as I said before, it's an inner human activity, trust. How could we put that in the system? Is it even possible to do that? And then one way is to change the system and take away all the control points. Or you work with the culture, just trying to make people working to trust. And we have a lot of examples of if you only work with the system, it's not among the people working there. It's not it's not applied to humans. So they're not prepared for not being controlled because they're so used to, well, my budget, there are like 15 red lights before it goes to the head office, so I don't really need to be that eager to get it right. But you really need to work with the responsibility of trust. Because it's easy to say, you have to trust me, but then it comes with, comes both ways.
Maybe with
Question.
Yeah.
May I ask a question? Would you like to ask a question?
No, go ahead.
I have one question about your story, I remember that in my protest, where I participated in many of protest actions, sometimes we share food, okay? And sometimes we don't have necessary quantity of food, okay? Some less food than activists. And then we ordinarily ask, or for example, beer between anarchists. We have some beer, but not for everybody. And then this is the problem. We don't have necessary quantity. And then we asked people, well, those who could not to take, please not take. And this is the only one request. And some of these participants lied because they could not to take, because they have money, they could buy different, but they take this food and eat, and they lie. What are you doing with these liars and this when they lie? They are not responsible, but you trust them.
What I am doing.
Yeah, your communities, what you're
I have to make a disclaimer here. I'm not responsible for all the Swedish that system, because that's really what Tillitsverket work for. Because if you put the trust in the system, where does the human aspect come?
Yeah.
And your situation is just describing that perfectly, because it really has to do with the human relation.
Yeah.
And if you don't get to spend time figuring that out, you're lost. And it has to do with your values. And I think if you just put, and organizations work with nice, beautiful value words put on posters, but if it's not grounded, there's no use. And it's not an answer to your question, but it's an answer of our perspective, because we really believe that we spend so little time. I mean, obviously you're very value-based, what you do. You're very driven in what you believe in, and you're very powerful in making statements like that. And I think in Sweden we have some people who are very radical, but the bigger mass is just sort of laissez-faire. And I think it's because we have had so many years of living in peace and in just.
Yeah, that's the contrast with Lithuania.
Yeah.
I'm really interested, like, what other people think of it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I see Lithuania a lot of times, it's very young, kind of, in a way, and it's been through so much trauma. And, you talk about the war and all that, but the immigration and all this stuff, it's really, and the distrust, I think, I don't know, maybe it's growing, or maybe it's getting better, or maybe some people think, but for me, it's still very complicated. And is there some way out of that at some point, or not? And it's also a small country. It also has to trust Europe, like stronger countries, to come help us if Russia comes or something else happens.
I'll just add that Lithuanians really trust the European Union. I think they have the highest, the percentage of how many people trust the European Union is the highest in all of the European Union. So maybe that's connected because of the money that Lithuanians still get from the European Union. It's just like a new member of the Union. But that is an interesting phenomenon that Lithuanians kind of maybe don't trust themselves, but they trust the European Union as a concept.
I also think it's also like.
I talked to
Yeah.
just adding to your thought, I think this had to do a lot with the fact that we wanted to be independent really very much, and often people really didn't want to go to Russian side, so they had to choose something what will promise them some better life or Western culture, let's say. I think that's why I feel that a lot of young people, that's what they believe, Maybe, I think maybe now it's also changed. Who knows?
I just wanted to go back to, if that's okay, to your examples, the workshops with the kids and with the parents, and also your example about the trust with the Roma people. I think in all these cases we were talking about the trust as a situational feature, which is not actually, it's to trust to happen, there has to be a subjective likelihood. So you would have certain circumstances or certain knowledge or certain social features to have in place. So, how to say, the trust is never about the certainty. It's more about on the situational probability, whether you trust someone in one case or you in another.
Yes, I find it very interesting that you mentioned the concept of trauma, because sociologists who made some researches on post-communist societies, they say that societies such as Lithuania, we used at least to have incredibly low amount of trust because of trauma, because we live in societies which we can describe as pathological. And if you have a pathological society, it becomes irrational and stupid to trust. You cannot trust even your colleagues, even members of your family. And I think, as you mentioned, it's not like snap and today we trust. It takes one interesting thing which you also mentioned about the Jews, the collapse of trust can happen in one day.
It can happen really fast.
But to rebuild,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think it's interesting to see how these waves even of trust can come. I don't remember the person because I was too young, but I just tried to imagine we had the Soviet Union, and then we had Baltic Way, which is a big event of trust. and then suddenly you have 90s, and then this trust kind of disappears again among the same people, you know. But then, and then, you know, it rises and falls, you know, you need somehow to have some very irrational trust that maybe will help something to happen and will disappear again, that maybe to some smaller level and so on. So I think it's interesting how these waves come and go, you know.
As you say, Gintautas mentioned, if you want, I guess, some revolutionary action, you have to be
At
prepared.
least process, no need so strong revolutionary, but revolutionary as well. I participated in few of them. But I would say that what I see the connection between this story from Sweden, kids, parents, you know, these communities, and what I'm talking, it's about friendship. That the communities of friends, building of friendship, which is not depend from that. This is from the one point of view. This is very ordinary to build some kind of friendship. But ask yourself: do you have the group of friends, you know, where you could at least autonomous zone of your friends or colleagues, where you could share your ideas and where you could trust to each other, and you will see that in order to have this one, you need to spend not just time, but you should create together with them this friendship. And it's not so easy. It's not so easy because you need some stories and so on. You know, it's in any way you need to understand how to build this one. You know, how to build your friendship. I will not use trust, but the concept of friendship. You have many friends where you could trust. This is the most important, I would say.
I'm going to agree, but I'm going to disagree a little bit and just say I think the trick, though, to make trust broader is getting out of your group of friends. For me in Lithuania, sometimes it seems like people really have these groups of friends. It's like a family that's really tight, and they don't leave that group sometimes.
But they
that's something specific, but I think in a broader sense, I think sometimes like you have to, like I said, cross that border, which people or sometimes think is not so politically correct or whatever, but I think getting outside of your little group is also important.
Yeah, but I'm talking, yes, it's what is necessary to do this separation between permanent trust groups and temporary trust groups. I'm talking about temporary trust groups, not about long-term like church, you know, where they would like to build. Okay, I believe this is possible as well, but in another way, for me, more interesting is, you know, this temporary autonomous zones and trust between for half of year, for this 2-3 months only. It's friendship, not forever. It just we are friends. Maybe forever, maybe it's longer, but it's not necessary. This is very limited. In order to separate from religious group of what I'm talking about, Lithuanian brotherhoods, you know, that's for all your life, no. Not different.
Well, I'm reading a book now of one Dutch historian, and it's called Mostly All the People Are Good. And he is like talking about this idea of what would happen if we would actually make a shift in our thinking. Just try to think that other people just don't want to harm you, you know. And this is very interesting because he is explaining a lot of psychological research and also historical disasters, you know, like wars, and how many things would have changed, you know, if the heads of the countries would have just, that other people maybe are not so bad, you know. So, but it comes from personal, part to the very big things in the world. So I think this is a little bit connected, and I guess, if you think about trust as well, I think it's all very connected. How you try to think sometimes, maybe sometimes we have to make some effort, you know, like to.
But it's like you have, if you communicated face to face, or you communicating with a smaller group, so you can put all your efforts to understand the way they rationalize their world, the way they actually rationalize the choices they make, and you get a better understanding of what they actually do and why they do things. But when you come to the bigger scale, when you come to the social scale, I think then trust gets a bit more tricky to capture, because you have this distance between, like anthropologists would say, in a very basic phase, what people say and what people say that they do. So you have this big discrepancy.
Yeah, it's a little bit what Lena said in the beginning, I think when you get a higher level, governments and systems, from one side, I think still there's always a person. In the end, there is still a person, in every system, every part, every point we have people, so. If I would follow my idea, from Lena's perspective, I think it's very,
you trust
it's
in
also
action.
very naive, like what you said, like competition is, like in competition, if we have competition, then it's stupid, to be, or to think like that. But yeah, I think that's, I mean, I'm kind of trying, to think from my point of view of believing in other people, but also it's very hard.
Occupying of Ministry of Education. Will you support those who say that they did wrong?
No, I support the teachers because everybody has the right to protest. But the means of protesting should also be regulated somehow. But I was on the teacher's side in this case. Because you should be visible with your protest.
Yeah, but
if you are not
just
doing anything violent.
Yeah, but you violate the law.
I think that the problem that you touched boils down to this, that in high trust societies it is rational to trust. But in the day and age we are a corrupt society and it's rational to be corrupt. And the problem is how to break the cycle. And it's very easy to say, wow, I found the problem. To find solutions and to implement, I have to admit I have no idea. So,
I mean, thank you, Justina. It was really nice to hear your experience. And I think what I really loved about what you were saying were those positive things you thought were missing in the Lithuanian context. So I would like to be a little bit more positive now, and I would like to ask maybe each speaker if you would have to, maybe you remember some good thing about, related to trust, like maybe some situation or maybe some sort of positive thing, like point out when the trust works, when maybe we can learn from it or remember what part is good about it.
Okay, I'll be on the Žygiai, Lithuania Tourism Council. I have a house there, a little house. I'm going there tonight, taking my mother there, and my father. For my book, I photographed there. When I was finishing my book, somebody said, I don't know, some friends said, there are all these Roma families in Žygiai. There's like 20 families, maybe or more. And so I went there and spent a couple nights sleeping in my car and photographing. And it was really amazing. And then I had an exhibition there a couple years ago in the palace, like I said, and I stayed in this house that I bought then just a year and a half ago. But when I was staying in the house and before I bought it, this neighbor came over, Algis, who works in the park. There's a regional park in Jakarta, beautiful park, beautiful palace, great place to stay, do projects. And trying to talk my friends into doing some projects there. And he came over and he was smoking a cigarette. We're outside having a beer, and he said to me, Andrew, if anybody tells you that Romani people are bad neighbors, they're lying to you. Because on one side of our house is this Roma family, and then Algis is right next to us, and then on the other side of him are two Romani families that live there. And it was really, Algis is this big Lithuanian guy, huge hands, he cuts down trees in the park, you know, and I was like, and that was just really kind of an amazing kind of experience. And it goes to my whole thing about, you know, getting to know your neighbors. Part of my photography stuff is really kind of basic, you know, I'm like, I came to Lithuania, who lives here? What kind of people live here? Who are my neighbors? And it was just simply just trying to photograph my neighbors. And then Vytautas, he's a real Romani guy. He's kind of one of the leaders of the Roma community. He's our neighbor on one side. And for Jonas last year, he kept telling me, Andrew, he has all these turkeys and chickens, and he has 2 horses, and he was like, Andrew, I'm giving you a turkey. I was like, I don't know what to do with a turkey. What am I going to do with the turkeys? It's huge turkeys. And I said, Vitos, maybe on Jonas or something. So on Jonas, Jonas is the summer solstice. In Lithuania, it's a big pagan holiday. It's named after John the Baptist, but it's a pagan holiday. And so on Jonas, my wife knows how to take care of a turkey, to take all the feathers off it. I have no idea. So Vytautas' wife and the granddaughter came over to the fence, and his wife was trying to hand me this turkey. Huge turkey. And I was like, no, I was telling his wife, no, I don't know what to do with it. She's like, oh, you don't know how to cut its neck, you know. You don't take cast. And so she's like, oh, 1 second. She took it behind her house. And 2 minutes later came back with this bucket with the turkey in it, you know, with the blood and everything else. And it was another case, my parents were coming that day, and I had to drive to Cholet, pick them up, and Ernesto, my wife, had to, if you ever, I don't know, a turkey, it takes 2 to 3 hours to you have to do it right away, you know, take all the feathers and clean it and, you know, cut it up and everything. So it was like crazy. But really, I'm gonna probably hopefully do some festival things. I have this other place where we want to do like a gallery thing. And it's really, you go to the Norfa, and there are all these Roma people shopping there, whatever. There's no, you know, this one family asked me for money, but it's very also this thing where you just be yourself, like, you know, and communicate like a normal person with them, and everything's fine. And so I have a lot of friends there and everything. But my experience there has been kind of amazing in Jakarta. It's right on the Latvian border. Riga's only about an hour away. Anyway, so I'll give you the full tour if you come. And it's a really cool community too, because with the trust thing, with the Jewish history, they've really, really taken care of it. And I think it's the only place in Lithuania where there's actually a Holocaust monument on the main square. And Balchunas, he kind of, and Sarah, this woman from the UK, they really take care of the Jewish history there. All the houses have plaques on them in English and Lithuanian. I'm on the tourist board, by the way. Yeah, so English and Lithuanian, like who lived in the house, what their occupation was, and all that kind of stuff. So the positive thing is, come to Jakarta.
Well, it's hard to pick, I think, but where I live, about 5 years ago, I came up with the idea to make a social bakery for young people who dropped out of school. And I'm not the baker, but I had the idea. And I think I'm just going to tell a short story because it's a chain of trust. Because I'm not the baker, but I had the idea. So my neighbor is a wood-fired oven maker. So I asked him if he could make one, and he said, yes, I'll do that. In 3 weeks, there will be coming wood-fire maker masters from Germany. We don't have anything to do. So, and 3 weeks after, there was an oven, and I didn't have any dropouts to come and bake there. And then I just this series of chains just opening up, because I was sort of like trusting the idea and just reaching out. And now it was actually 5 years ago, and it made me open up my home and this bakery for a lot of low-income immigrants in 2015 that came to Sweden. About 150,000 young people came, and not all of them to my bakery, obviously. But and I gained so much of perspectives on life. And the other day, Amir, a friend of mine from Afghanistan, he asked me, "What are you doing with your freedom, Stina?" And I think when we talk about the Swedish and the Nordic perspectives, I've never thought about the gift of my freedom before. So that sort of chain of trust, me just letting go of my home for a while, has really given me a lot.
Thank you, and I've been informed that we are nearing the end of our interesting symposium, and we will read.
There are lots of
Yeah. We'll have to check out some of your ideas, and before we do that, I've been also informed that there are some more artists among us. Yeah. So, what have you done?
Oh, we heard from Andrew, maybe you can follow up on
Hi. So, this June I graduated from college, and I had my topic on personalized information bubbles in new media. So I created my whole thesis, and you can see those screens there. It's just something I brought from college and adapted here. But it's called English. It's Narcissus. Yeah. So I was fascinated with the Greek myth about how he looked into his own reflection, and long story short, killed him. So I found a link between this and the whole concept of echo chambers and filter bubbles. Yeah, long story short, the whole topic includes how, for example, artificial intelligence or and so on, algorithms can create your own bubble in a way, but it's not just about bubbles. And how it can harm, for example, democracy, as an example, or make societies more radicalized, or the polarization of societies when you only see what you want to see or what is offered to you in a way. So I created I took three stereotypes and created three characters. A nationalist, a radical nationalist, a girl that is not interested in anything and only about, for example, like, I don't know, pop culture, shoes, shopping, stereotypes, and a really religious person. So you can just put on the glasses that have a lens and look into their world, and without the glasses, you just see one big picture of layers and different media. And when you put on the glasses, different color, you can get into their world and see that even though the same form of media, for example, we have video sharing platform, a social media platform, and just news portals. Even though it's in the same I don't know, category, you see a different perspective and world. So yeah, this ties with the narcissist as getting trapped inside your own, let's say, bubble, but it's not just the bubble. It can do some harm. So yeah, thank you.
Maybe after the discussion, we'll
Yeah,
We
of
will have
course.
Thank you, and I will not read all the papers here, but I'm glad that many ideas are repeated many times, maybe because it goes to Ministry of Justice, mentioned many times, and I think I will leave this for you to come here to see closer. And as the last point of the discussion will be like the one that was the first one, why we are here together, that was this point, this gathering here, and I will ask the leader to say the last part and to say the first part as well, why we came here.
The introduction in the end.
Introduction. Hello everyone. We invited you here because we invited you here, Jurga, me, Saula, Justina, and also Stina and Patrick. Maybe we can stand up. I don't know. Just to be visible.
We can stand on a trust point.
We can. Yeah, so we invited you because we are having this workshop also here in this premises, and we were interested in trust as a topic and how it relates to our work as a cultural enterprises, institutions, and how can we sort of help Lithuanian society to have more dialogue about trust, and how can we be useful in this topic. So tomorrow and on Saturday we will be having a workshop here, and afterwards you will see the results. We will, of course, share them with you. And yeah, we really hope that we will open a question of trust in society with this very nice discussion today, and also with work tomorrow and on Saturday. And I also want to introduce this very interesting installation. Maybe you can say something about this.
So after meeting thousands of people in Sweden, playing with them and so on, and having these sorts of dialogues, we've come up with 5 different aspects of trust. So what are we actually talking about when we talk about trust? And from those 5 aspects, it became a star of trust. So this is our a model of where we invite people into the star and to explore your own. So what's your relation to trust and to the different aspects of trust? And that's what we're going to do much more of tomorrow.
But maybe we can try it.
So yeah, and yeah, of course, before you leave, absolutely, you're all invited to join them. Yeah.
It's a public workshop, anybody can come?
Yeah.
Oh.
Just please come to me to register, just to tell that we should expect
A
you,
little
so we
bit
don't
of
start.
control.
Yeah, no, so we don't start it, like, we know that you should, that you're coming, and so just for that reason.
From 9 to 2.
Yeah, tomorrow we start at 9, just a reminder for tomorrow. So thank you very much for today. Thank you, Linus, and thank you, Ruta.
Here.
And Ruta. She's for making the discussion more interesting. And thank you, speakers.
Thank you. Thanks.
And let's stay a little bit here and just talk if we have something to say to each other.
There's Algirdas work, so please
Yeah.
join us. And still, Andrew has his work there, so.
We're gonna come.
Thank you.